Hi everybody, my name is Hani Tantoang and I am a first year master's student in UB's higher education program. I also work as a graduate assistant in UB's Office of International Education, particularly under the UB SIM program. I've been working there since 2015. My experience with visual analytics and data in general is very minimal. For my job, I just enter applications, do academic advising. So I don't really work that much with data. I don't run reports. I don't create charts or graphs. So before I took this class with Joseph Mantillon, I never knew what visual analytics was comprised of. So it was a very new territory for me. So Tableau was also something that was new. I only downloaded it in January when I had to use it for my class assignments. So you can assume that I have no other platforms I've ever used. Tableau was very easy to use. I think it was quite intuitive and I just had to drop the data and it gave me so many different options to visualize it. And I liked how it had a lot of formulas. So even if I didn't have the exact calculations, I could have Tableau actually calculate things for me. I just liked how it had a lot of customizations available, like colors, things, how you want to visualize them, if you want to put in annotations, everything was really great. But keep in mind, this is my first experience with a program like this, so maybe I just like it a lot more. For my story, I wanted to do something that I could work with using data from work. Right now in the office, there's only maybe 2 full-time staff that work for this program. So we don't run very many reports. We don't do a lot of data analytics. We're always trying to catch up with work and stay on top of it. So I wanted to do something that was easy to understand for anyone who saw it about our program. And I just wanted something that we could show to people if there was ever a need for a report to see how the program has been since it started back in 2004. So as you can see, my project was focused on applications and enrollment data for our project. So the first dashboard talks about when the program started, and this is kind of like a timeline. So if you hover, it tells you exactly when this major started, what concentrations, if any, were offered, and so it goes on. And then the second dashboard talks about all the different countries that our students come from. So because the program is based in Singapore, the majority of our students are Singaporeans, and you have this little function to filter by semester. So I wanted the audience to learn how the countries that our applicants come from have grown since the program. So if you look at June 2004, for example, it's just Singapore, Vietnam, a handful of countries, and then there's a map that visualizes this. And if you hover over, it tells you exactly how many people applied from that country, how many were freshmen, etc. And then if you scroll further down, it gives you the top 10 countries for applications and enrollments during that semester. So you'll see that the first semester we offered this program, it wasn't very many countries. And then when you go to right now, for example, you'll see how the countries have sort of increased. It always changes every semester, and then you can just look at all of the countries that people have come from since the program started. So I wanted the staff in our office to be able to tell, this is the top countries that people are applying from. These are the top countries that students are from. And I was hoping that could help us when we market the program. And then the third tab just gives us an overall application and enrollment breakdown. It just tells you how many people actually applied, how many enrolled. Again, you can get a breakdown per semester. And then you can see which majors they're interested in, how many applied based on their gender and the type. A lot of our students are freshmen. Well, I don't know, it's more like 50-50 kind, roughly, but a lot of our students already have a 2-year certificate when they apply. So those went under transfer, and then many were from just straight out of high school, so freshmen. And then lastly, I wanted the audience to be able to get a breakdown for each program. So if we look at psychology, for example, these are which countries they applied from, which countries they enrolled. Again, a breakdown just overall, and then breakdown by gender, and a breakdown by major. So you can tell that the intended audience was for the staff in our office, so that it could help with any future plans we have, as well as our supervisors. I think so far we've just been showing them reports with numbers, and I think when you visualize these numbers, it makes it easier to understand and easier to see the differences. Like, look at this chart. Look at how many girls apply compared to boys. So we always knew we had more female applicants than male, but we didn't think that the difference was this huge. It was 123 females and 43 males. That's like a third. So, yep. We have a Microsoft Access database with all of these student enrollment and application. It's not perfect. For example, it doesn't track how many times a person changes majors or how many times they take a leave of absence and then come back. It has very basic information, so that's where I pulled my data from. I didn't necessarily have to plan anything. I just told my supervisor what I needed. She made a query, and then she pulled the data for me. All I had to do was just clean up and take out any personal identification information. So this is the structure of my data. These are the terms that Hub uses. And then these are just for me to be able to tell easily, because obviously Tableau's not going to understand these term numbers. And then semesters. And then at first I wanted to do it by academic year, but then I realized that Tableau doesn't recognize those either. So I had to go back to these numbers. I also decided last minute to add in a timeline, which was the very first thing you see when you open up my Viz. So this is just a timeline when everything started. So I just created multiple connections. I have a separate sheet with this timeline, so I used Tableau to open 2 connections. I didn't want to join the data because joining it just did something weird to my enrollment numbers, and I didn't like that, so I just opened multiple connections. I don't think I used many techniques. As I said before, I am not familiar with data. I'm not familiar with, calculating all of that stuff. So I tried to keep my project within whatever I'm familiar with. So I didn't use a lot of averages, running totals, etc. So you won't see a lot of those techniques. Obviously, if I had more time to learn and to test out, I would have liked to see how people changed their majors repeatedly. I would have liked to chart that out so we know when people decide to change, etc. And I also would like to add more in terms of just overall application. I'd like to put in environmental factors, like whenever let's say when the US dollar has a lower value than the Singaporean dollar, for example, did it affect our enrollment? And things like that. And then if for all the people that applied and then never came to our program, where did they go instead? That kind of data is kind of hard to get because, again, this program is based in Singapore and we don't have all of that data. But if I could get my hands on that data, I would have liked to do that. Visualizing all these data helped because it allowed me to see all the trends that were obvious. So you'll see in the beginning that the June, which is basically the summer semesters, had the highest enrollment. And then all of a sudden it switched to September. So it's all Septembers. And I asked my supervisor why, and she said it's because before students waited a whole year to apply because they wanted to see if they could get into any local universities before applying to our program. But then later on, people's kind of just changed. They just applied for everything the same time. So they applied for our program as well as local universities at the same time, and they didn't wait as long to see if they could get into local universities. So that's why there was this change, basically. And then again, as I said, we know we have a lot of female students because the majors that we provide in Singapore aren't considered like hard sciences or things that men would do. But we didn't realize how much of a difference there was in our female applicants and male applicants until I did this chart. So both my supervisor and I were quite surprised. Same went with the freshman and transfer. I think we thought the numbers were closer. We thought it was almost 50-50, or at least I thought that there were even more transfer students because recently the Singaporean Ministry of Education said that our programs like us can't accept O-level, which is basically another like post-secondary exam level. So I thought our freshman numbers were going down and transfers were coming up. Which I guess I was right, because right here you can see that 138 transfers enrolled, but then 182 freshmen enrolled. And then after the Ministry of Education in Singapore made that announcement, the numbers of freshmen and transfer got much closer. So yeah, if I had more time, I would have liked to factor those changes in and make more charts to show how they affected, because I do think my chart is very simple right now. But this was what I had set out originally to show, so I'm quite happy with the final product. Okay, so that was my project for the UBSIM program for my visual analytics class. Thank you for watching the video.